Hey folks, we are talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 13, Coming Home, the season finale. We are going to give our spoiler free reviews of the episode and then get into a spoiler breakdown of the episode. Starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Show. I'm Nathan.
I'm David.
And I'm Condra.
All right, take two. We're running a little late, have technical issues, so let me. In the season 4 finale, the DMA approaches Earth and Navarre with evacuations underway. Burnham and the team aboard the U.S.S. Discovery must find a way to communicate and connect with a species far different from their own before time runs out. So, David, what did you think of this episode?
I like it that this is straight to the point. It doesn't drag on this episode. It's action here and here and here and there and there and everywhere. And right when you thought it's all over, it comes again. But I really like this episode that it kind of ties some loose ends here, especially for the small plot lines between characters, and ended in a nice send note. And there was a few surprises at the end, which made it more, more great about it. So that's what I really like about it. So I really loved it. I like this one better than the last year's season finale.
Okay. Conjure, what do you think?
Yeah, this was a very emotional episode. A lot of tears, right? Lots of very sad moments, happy moments, and seeing some familiar faces come back. And to David's point, a lot of action. I mean, I think we were anticipating that they were going to, or were going to try to sort of conclude this 10C story in this one episode. So I think there was an expectation that a lot would happen, but I think it was really well executed. And this episode also just reminded me of how beautiful this show has been, the imagery throughout. And yeah, you know, I guess when we get into it, we can sort of talk about where it was a little bit weak in parts, but I enjoyed it. For the end of the season.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about whether or not I liked it better than the season finale last year. I think David's assessment that it was a better season finale than last year is correct. I'm trying to figure out where I land on whether or not it's a better season than last year. I liked the episode. There were some good parts, some really good parts, because, like as you said, Contra, the visuals on this show always impress. They're spending all the money on visual effects, but also set decoration and also costumes. So I really appreciate all that stuff, and the show looks beautiful. I have some nitpicks here or there about the plot of this episode because I thought it was predictable in places. Like what I thought was going to happen happened in almost every instance. That doesn't mean that the actors, given what they were given, didn't like rise to the occasion and make you feel things. So I definitely felt things from their performances, but I don't think that the plotting of this episode was so like surprising that I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I and maybe that wasn't the point. There was definitely some action. There's definitely, I think it was better. I think the episode and also the season in general was better wrapped up this season than last season. That being said, I don't know if the general average of the episodes were better than the ones last season. I think maybe some of the highs last season were higher, but I'd have to go back and think about all the episodes. Like, and we can talk about that when we get into like the spoiler part of this conversation, because we'll do. I mean, I don't have all the episodes in front of me, but I can bring them up and we can talk through the episodes a little bit in this conversation.
So we're just doing. Are we doing all of the episodes, or just
we're talking about this episode, but
finale?
I think he's talking about references.
We're talking about this episode, but this is the season finale, right? So we have to sort of talk about this is the season finale. So this season finale is not just this is not a
Yeah.
standalone episode. Because they have a seasonal arc. This is the end of a story that they've been telling for 13 episodes. So we sort of have to touch on how well they told that story, not just how well they told this story, because this story was the last chapter of the entire story. Um, which like I said, I have mixed feelings about how they told the entire story. This episode, I think, was a better finale than the previous finale. It was probably a better finale than, well, two seasons ago. I think the season two's finale was probably a little bit better because it had a lot more action. It had the fight in space. Although the fight in space, the space battle at the end of season two was a little difficult to follow. There was just too many things on the screen. Um, so it was this episode was definitely better, easier to follow. So yeah, I have mixed thoughts about the episode and also the season. So we can get into that when we get into the spoiler talk of this conversation. So with that, what I will say is that if you're enjoying the conversation, before we get into the spoiler talk, please comment down below to join the conversation, and please like and subscribe. It helps out the channel. And if you haven't seen the episode, it'll help you find this video again. So do that, and we really appreciate it. Spoilers ahead. All right. So, what do you want to talk about, guys? What do you want to start with? Rather, is what I meant to say.
Well, the main point is where they first started. They were trapped in a bubble, basically.
Yeah, an orb, a sphere. Yeah.
What, orb, sorry, an orb sphere. But they were trying to figure out how to get out and everything. Well, at the same time, book is book with Reno is stuck in a
Mm-hmm.
jail cell with what Tarka is trying to get to the center of the
Mm-hmm.
encasement of the energy source. And so there's two things going on. It's like you see two things going on at the same time. Like one is trying to figure out how to get out, one is trying to get out too, but trying to stop Tarka at the same time. While at the same time, while also that the president who was also on the ship discussing with Michael about what's to be the best course of action while still keeping peace talks with 10C. And then later on they find out that there was that someone knew that about they were discussing about how did the book escape from the last episode, and it was revealed that General what's her name again? Help me.
Ndoye, General
Thank
Ndoye.
you.
Enjoy.
The General Gandoya helped them and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and then we've been talking with them almost the entire time with the previous two episodes. Yeah, and they're always in shock about it because Michael's thought she was thinking we could have got book out and then or they can attract them to stop them for her. But the general has her own reasons and everything, which she realizes that it's wrong, that it's the wrong course of action, which led her to be confined in her quarters,
Mm-hmm.
which led to Michael trying to rethink her plan to figure out how to track Book down and and how to still keep peace with the 10C.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's how we start the episode. As you said, Ndoye gets confined to her quarters because she's the accomplice, and she doesn't. I mean, she's honorable enough not to like have them hunt for who does it. She was like, I did it
Yeah.
because, and I did it for very specific reasons. I know you might not agree with what I did, but I did it for Earth. Um, Book and Reno are still prisoners of Tarka and his craziness. I think that Stamets and Adira figure out how to get free of the sphere because they are confused. Like the 10C is confused. Saru is saying, "Can you let us free?" And the 10C is like, "You're already free," because they don't understand the individuality of our species or of our various species, which I thought was interesting because they're still it's in the midst of all this stuff going on. They're trying to figure out how to stop Tarka. Apparently, there's someone who is a traitor. They're also trying to still talk to 10C because 10C again they only learned how to talk to 10C in their timeline a few hours ago, or maybe less than a half an hour ago. So that was interesting, and that Stamets and Adira figure out that if they expel a lot of energy in one place, they can get free of the bubble or the sphere, but they will blow out the spore drive. And the only reason that they were actually sent on this trip is because they had the spore drive. It would have taken anyone else decades to get to the galactic barrier. So yeah, it was they blew out their spore drive to try to stop them so that they could have some sort of semblance of communicating with 10C and negotiating with 10C. So that all that setup was interesting. I think what I thought was more predictable was that I knew that book was no sorry I knew that they were going to get free at some point. I didn't know how. I appreciated the writing of I'm saying Spot, but it's not Spot. Grudge. Grudge is like a door. That was some yeah, the collar.
Yeah.
That was some interesting writing there for him to get free. But I pretty much last week I was like, Tarka has to die, so Tarka died. And then in the middle of this episode, it looks like Book is dead. But I also knew that Book wasn't dead. Did you think Book was actually dead when he died? When it looked like he died?
I thought he was, but then later on, it's kind of like, didn't I was thinking maybe that he was in the middle of being transported, but somehow stopped. And thinking like, people thought he's dead, but I'm like thinking, wait a minute, this reminded me of another episode before. It's kind of like when in TNG where this Enterprise found a small ship that belongs to Scotty.
Yeah, his pattern was
Yeah.
It's frozen. So it makes me so that scene reminding me of that. So I'm thinking, like, no, I don't think he's dead yet.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciated her reaction. That was good. That was good acting. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh no, I thought that the 10C were going to hold Book and that he would have some sort of experience with him. Like he didn't rematerialize on the bridge because, they had him, right? But then later on he reappears having no knowledge of anything, and you realize, they just he was held in stasis. But I figured that the 10C was involved and would have maybe he would have had an opportunity to communicate with them somehow.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I suspected something was up when Tarka beamed him over and he didn't materialize immediately. Like someone had to say, "Oh, I have a pattern," which is not usually how transporters work. Like after
But it was the same for Reno though. Like they picked her up, right? She didn't just they got a notification.
Yeah, but I thought it was a notification that someone was beamed over, as opposed to someone was beamed over. Like he had to beam them somewhere. He had to beam him somewhere, right? Like I thought there was a couple steps that were there with Reno.
No, but they still control where the person materialized, because they did the same with Jett. She was like, bring her right to the bridge and they'll bring him. So there's, I guess, control on both sides of the transport. Like you can send somebody, but we have to receive you and put you somewhere, unless it's like a subversive.
I will say that it was a shock, because of how slowly he came in. I was like, oh, they're gonna kill him, and then the ship blew up. So I kind of was like, they actually did it. They did the thing. I was like, but then like a moment later, I was like, they're probably gonna bring him back later. But they did shock me in the moment. Like he was he was beaming in, and then the ship blew up. It was like, they sometimes say, oh, we just got it, but no, the beam that was materializing went away as soon as the ship blew up. which was interesting. Uh, but yeah, I think Sonequa's performance there was good as well because she responded the way that you would expect her to respond, but she also was like that was less than a minute that she responded that way because she was like, okay, we got to get back to it, which is also
Yeah.
it sucks for her. It sucks for her. It sucks for her. But
Yeah,
like an
you
entire
have
planet is
to
about to
because
get destroyed. Two planets are about to get destroyed. So you got to kind of get back on mission. So yeah, I appreciated that. I appreciated that she acted like the way that a human would act, but also the way that an officer would act as well. And I know there are people that complain about how much Burnham cries or whatever, but I feel like that's an actual human reaction to what happened. That in a officer reaction to what happened. I mean, not everyone is disconnected from their emotions and like emotionless automatons, which I feel like some people want Burnham to act. Um, she acted emotionally because something terrible happened, and then she got back on mission. So I
which is what any
right,
Starfleet
yeah,
captain would do, right? Like she's not that different
yeah.
in
I
that
don't
regard from other. Because I think like people are like, oh,
I
she's
don't
more
know.
emotional than others, and but we talked about this, and it's
No,
like she's
I don't know
not.
what they
Like
expect from her.
she's
Maybe
not
they
more
wanted like a
emotional.
silent tear, like oh he died, and then and then got back to mission. Like yeah, she I mean she didn't like wail or anything. She gasped and she was like shook for a bit, and then she's like got to get back to mission. Um
Yeah,
so yeah
yeah,
they don't know how to stop him because he's Tarka's like um dodging all of the he was dodging all of the orbs, and
or
they get Ndoye to come up because she's a military strategist, and she suggests a somewhat of a kamikaze mission. I guess it was a kamikaze mission because if they didn't if they didn't transport her out, she definitely would have died. Right? They got her
mhm.
before she exploded. Um, but they didn't get Tarka or Book before they exploded. So yeah, she contributes. They try to redeem her. I mean, I wasn't that mad at her. I mean, there are people that like I think she was duped last episode. Like
Yeah,
I think she was duped last episode, so I wasn't that upset with what she did. I feel like she was also 2 episodes back when in Rosetta she was like, okay, but you have to let diplomacy work. So it's not like she was like a evil admiral like they have in Star Trek all the time. She was just trying to do trying to do the
yeah,
best that she could within what she understood or her idea of what the best
hmm,
was. Well, and people differ. So and they
yeah. And she did say because when they caught her, when she fessed up, she was like, she remained,
mm-hmm.
she's ready to serve. So she realized. I mean, she got that one wrong, but that
Yeah, and
they could call
she
on
explained
her.
herself. She's like, you
Yeah, and
guys were
she was
gone. Who didn't know how long we were going to be gone. So like, yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah.
yeah, alive or dead.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I appreciated, I guess, the way that they didn't vilify her. They gave her a bit of a bit of a bit of a way um to redeem herself. I thought they were going to. Elwa was also thought this apparently that they were going to send Detmer in. She's like, we need a pilot, and Detmer is the pilot.
yeah,
So it's like I guess I'm going on a suicide mission.
yeah,
So yeah, so it was interesting that they had that little beat. But I also it was also sort of predictable that she wasn't going to go. I knew that the general was going to go there. It wasn't that surprising, but it was nice that they put that beat in there where Owo was like, I don't want my friend to go. So yeah,
yeah.
I think after that they get to 10C, or rather, they 10C sends another orb.
Well, like
Sends
invited
sends
them or
another
something like
orb,
that.
right? And she brings the entire bridge crew over for the
Mhm.
communication. Which I don't know. What did you think? What did you think of that decision?
Yeah.
Like, do you think the entire bridge crew needed to be there?
I think so because at this point they've realized. So we sort of skipped over where President Tarina
Ah,
communicated
yes, 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 yes,
telepathically with
yes.
the 10C. Sort of says like they don't. They're sort of all one, right? They don't seem to be individuals, and their understanding of them. So I think it was sort of important, maybe
See
to
individuals, more
visually
individuals. Yeah.
um, yeah, to see more individuals
Mm-hmm.
as you're having the conversation. And I mean, I think to your point, like the 10C, because they make a comment when they bring the bridge crew and they're communicating, like, and they say, I think the 10C says, we didn't realize you were higher beings, right? And I think they are so, so far advanced, they don't one see us as higher beings, but also not as individuals and not as
Yeah,
different
I mean, to
species,
them, they
right?
might have been wiping out
Um,
like plankton or
so
something like that. That doesn't. Yeah. So yeah,
yeah, exactly. Right. Like I think like when I look under the microscope of bacteria, like so
yeah,
many of them look the same,
yeah.
and then you realize like, they're not. And so that sort
Mm-hmm.
of put it in perspective. And then I think also just for the crew to experience it, right? For as many of them as possible to
Mm-hmm.
make that sort of contact
Mm-hmm.
and plead their case, really, because most of the crew is from
Yeah, I
Earth,
guess they
um,
do make good
and
representatives for who they're trying to save, right? Like most of the bridge crew is from Earth, right? I think all the yeah, they didn't bring Linus, so there was mostly all the humans that they brought to the in the sphere. So yeah, and they brought Dr. Pollard, which I'm still not sure. Is she the chief medical officer, or is what you call it chief medical officer? I feel like in the first,
I think she's the
I
chief.
think she's a chief
yeah,
medical
Yeah, I
officer
okay,
think she's the
too.
chief
in the first,
medical officer.
There's
Yeah,
two. There's no. They never label as assistant or backup. They're
but
just two
I feel
chief
like in
medical
season one
officers.
she was like definitively the chief medical officer, and then but they focus on now I'm blanking on his name Culber. They focus on Culber,
Culber.
Dr. Culber.
but she still shows up.
Yeah,
She's still part of the cast, and yeah, and when
yeah,
they have medical issues with that they have to figure out, I guess it's both of them trying to like work on it. It's not just him trying to work on the medical issues. I feel like when it's more like counseling thing, it's just him. But like when there's like a medical mystery,
yeah.
it's both of them kind of tag teaming it,
Mm.
which is interesting. They definitely need to write her more as well. I feel like they've given her more lines than they have some of the bridge crew people, but still don't know anything about her. But she was there.
But
She was there in the background.
Yeah, she was
but don't
there.
forget that
Yeah.
she was there when Dr. Culber first died in
Mm-hmm.
season one, and she was the
Mhm.
replacement, the chief medical officer, until he came
Mm-hmm.
back to life. So I guess it's kind of like a joint thing, kind of what Saru and Michael had back in season three, when they had a captain's
Mm-hmm.
chair and everything. Until the end of season three, we know that Michael became
Right.
the captain. And Saru is more like not a first officer, even though he kind of acts like one, but he's acting like some advisor
Yeah,
or something like that,
he's the
to the
XO.
crew.
He's the number one. She's definitely the captain of the ship. I don't know what they're going to do for the end of next season. I think we've talked about this a couple times throughout this season, whether or not he's going to be on a different show with Tilly. One thing we didn't mention, actually, I mentioned it in the spoiler free thing when I read the description. Back, the evacuation. So part of this episode, like I don't know, a third of this episode is the evacuation that Tilly and Odette Fair, Admiral Vance is doing. So that apparently Starfleet headquarters can fly,
Mhm.
and it's um,
Apparently,
I haven't. I think this is another thing that we were talking about earlier about how beautiful the show looks. The Starship headquarters, just the geometrical shape of it, it was beautiful. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, so
it's gorgeous.
just seeing that
There was
it's so much more like alien and different than all the Star Trek ships that we've seen in the past, and you would expect things to change a lot in 1,000 years. I want to see more ships from that era, um, actually out in space. But yeah, that was a beautiful shot, and the fact that the ship could basically break into compartments is also an interesting little note there. But yeah, we saw Tilly ordering around the cadets to help with the evacuation for
Hmm.
Titan and also Earth in those scenes. Sorry, David, I cut you off there. What were you saying?
no. You just point out right there with it is beautiful. Space
Hmm.
station compared to what we saw before, like Deep Space Nine's a space
Yeah.
station, and we saw like Yorktown and the Star Trek
Hmm.
Beyond and everything. And this one, it happened that each deck happened to be its own sub
Yeah.
ship, so which is really cool. I'm thinking like, whoa, it's a ship too.
Yeah.
So that each deck, so it's I don't know what to call it, U.S.S. Deck 9 or whatever. I don't know, or something like
Yeah.
that. Oh my god! Now it's something
Yeah.
like a cleanup code. Clean up on aisle 9. No, but no, it's very interesting how like you said earlier, that it's nice to see how a space station can be evolved from 1,000
Yeah.
years, from the future we know, from the original timeline up to now. Because we skipped Deep Space Nine, we skipped the other space station we known from TNG and all the and Deep Space Nine and
Yeah.
Voyager. So this is a probably one of a kind space station for that's the only thing representing Federation. So which is really
Well,
beautifully
we
done.
saw the USS Nog, and we also saw the USS the Voyager J last season. And I know this is
Mhm.
boring conversation to some people, and other people like ships, so they like talking about ships. So I'll spend a little bit more time on this, but not a lot more time on this. But we
Mhm.
saw some other
Mhm.
ships last season, but we haven't seen them in action except until this episode. So yeah, it's I want to see more ships because I want to see the functionality because it seems like they have different classes, just like they have different classes in the TNG era that do different things. I want to see what the different shapes do because one of the ships is like just a giant dome with with an environment under it, rainforest
Rainforest.
underneath it. Yeah, that's one of the ships. I think that's the USS Maya. Sorry, that's the USS Angelou. So it was named after Maya Angelou. The giant rainforest one is the USS Angelou.
Oh,
Um. Anyway.
Yeah. With Starfleet headquarters, I thought like I guess because we have to remember, when Earth left the Federation, Starfleet would have no
Mhm.
longer had a home, but also now, you know, they've been battered and beaten and broken. I think they're always like in a defensive position, and if you have a structure where you know whoever's in headquarters can leave and go to different directions, you have greater
Yeah.
chances of people surviving. But yeah, no, it was a very nice touch and sort of great to see Tilly
Mm.
reassuring the cadets, right? The cadets who couldn't work together
In her episode, yeah, yeah.
earlier
Hmm.
in the season, and yeah, and now just really working. And I guess that moment when you realize like how few people are actually going to
Yeah,
be
four hundred and
evacuated from
fifty
Earth,
thousand is
right?
not a
Because you
lot
figure
compared to the billions of people that are on the planet. And you
not
got
a
to imagine like 900, not even 900,
yeah,
900, 930 from where we are right now. It's 900, not 900, it's a thousand, 1,300 years, 1,330 years from where we are right now. So we're at like 7 billion right now. You imagine what the population is in 1,330 years. So like, yeah,
well, well,
yeah,
they did mention we have some humans living on Titan and
yeah,
Jupiter.
yeah.
So
So
yeah,
they said
yeah.
we were going
So
to be able
yeah,
to
it's
evacuate everyone on Titan, which I apparently is a lot smaller population, but like but Earth most of the people were going to die if they didn't finish the negotiations or if the negotiations didn't go well. So yeah, that takes us back to the sphere and the conversation that they have. So they have this conversation with them, and I feel like they got a lot better at communicating with them, just for the sake of the plot, than they did in the previous episode. Like we actually saw some of the math that they were using to communicate in the previous episode. In this episode, they kind of dispense with that very very quickly for the sake of the plot, because they were communicating some complex things. It seems like that were far more complex than what they were doing before. Although I guess once they established certain things like what us means and things like that, I guess they keep using those things over and over again when they're referring to the same things. So I guess the more they talk, it should get a little bit easier. But yeah,
Yeah.
I forget the course of the conversation. The conversation was like, I think Burnham tried to communicate. They repeated the question about I thought you were free, or I thought you were more than one, or are you more than one rather? And she said, we are more than one, and we are one. We're whole, and we're right. And then they asked some questions about the two that broke off, and she explained. That's the part that was a little bit weird for me. She explained a lot of backstory,
Yeah, I think she was sort of
like
walking that line.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say she was sort of, I think, walking that line between like trying to explain to them in non-inflammatory terms what Book and Tarka had done, because you see the 10C and how large they are, and they still sort of have just no idea. And I think you want to sort of maybe come across a little bit as, I don't want to say bumbling idiots, but you don't mean harm, right? Nothing that happened was intentional. And I think that was probably the more important message than assigning blame or trying. And also, like, they're on a time crunch.
4 hours.
So
Or like that.
what's the bare right amount of information that they need to get them to stop the DM? And they don't need like the whole saga of this season.
Yeah, she got the cliff notes over, but even the cliff notes seemed like complex to communicate. That's the part where I was like, they can communicate that his planet was destroyed, and that Tarka lost someone and wanted to find that person. It's like seems far more complex than the simple things that they're communicating before. But I don't know, Saru sends all that over, and they understand that. Yeah, and then they ask why she's sad. So I guess they can sense her feelings. So it's not just Tarina. Just Tarina reached out intentionally, but I guess they can feel her feelings, and they asked her about why she's feeling so sad, and she said, the person who died was very close to me, and that's when they brought him back. Now, how do you feel about Book causing all the trouble that he has for half of the season, and then feeling bold enough to be like telling them things like
I mean, I think to his credit, Book didn't. I mean, he broke, because President he broke like a lot of laws, but he didn't intentionally harm anybody.
Yeah.
So
he acted out of anger, basically.
Yeah, but he didn't I think had he killed a lot of people in the process, maybe things would be different. But I also think like in that moment, I feel like he was justified.
I feel like he was justified, but I feel like someone else could have said that's not that. Well, we need you to do more than just stop it. Like he was very quick to say that's not enough.
But don't forget. right. But don't forget, like, I mean, they were able to stop the
Mm-hmm.
DMA like that, right? Which was also impressive. So whatever like mechanism or whatever they're doing, it was because they flipped back to Tilly and Admiral Vance, and you see the rocks, the debris
Moving off, yeah,
from the
yeah.
DMA hitting Earth, and all of that, starts to get pulled back. So
Mm-hmm.
they were able to reverse that process pretty quickly. So I mean, I think like I guess could somebody else have asked? Sure, but in the spontaneity of it, where he's feeling like you feel his
Mm-hmm.
sadness and his loss or whatever, like I was just like, okay, let's he is
Sure,
probably the best
he's
representative,
lost the
I
most,
think,
right?
to
And Burnham has already
to
explained the loss,
yeah.
right? But he's actually the person who lost it, and that it actually goes back to something that we skipped over, or when we were talking about this earlier on the ship with Reno. Tarka tries to get Book over to his side by saying, when we go to this new universe, you can come with me. Quajon will be there. Your nephew will be there.
Yeah.
Your brother will be there. And Reno's like, no, they won't. I mean, they may
Hmm.
look the same, but they're not. They're gone, and you have to deal with the fact that they're gone. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
If they made a diagonal, a sandwich that's cut diagonally and with
yeah,
pickles and stuff like that, and it's in your part of the side, I'm just
yeah,
very damn hungry. So, but
yeah.
yeah.
the, the, so when Book gets out using the collar, and Reno transports over, Tarka starts to break down, and Book is like, he's gone. It's like, which is what we were talking about. Like, it's unlikely he's still alive. It's very unlikely that he's still alive. He was being
Yeah.
tortured and held. He probably was killed. He just he's basically running on guilt,
Yeah.
and he's putting all these people in risk because he's running on guilt. Um,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
Not only guilt, but also like he has some longing that he thinks that the whatever
Oris,
his
I think,
name is,
Oro.
or
Oral.
Oros, yeah, Oros, thank you. This is Oros that he might see him, just his face. He thought all those things would come back to him, like what they wanted. But until they took Reno and Book to make him realize it's not the same
Mm,
person, and then Tarka somehow at the end throughout the whole season he realizes that they're right the whole time.
mm.
He just doesn't want to admit it. So I think it's like
I think he
He
knew.
was
I think
self-deluding.
he would have been
yeah,
content.
it's a losing,
Yeah,
yeah.
but he would have been content to be in a
With a different
different
Oro.
universe with a
Yeah,
different Aros. Yeah, that he could, like
yeah,
befriend all over again and whatnot. I think
yeah.
he would have
Until
been
until
happy with that
Reno makes the
situation.
point that he's not there. Right? None of our people are there. My wife isn't there. Um, my wife is gone.
Mhm.
His nephew is gone. His brother is gone. They're gone. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that was some good writing there. It was also some good delivery again by Tig Notaro. Definitely want to see more of her next season. Um,
Yeah.
I
yeah.
love her.
So they eventually decide not only to stop the DMA, but they also are are very sad and regretful for what they did. Um, and at this point, we think that Discovery is trapped on the outskirts of the galaxy, but they use the DMAs.
Oh, can we back up
Sure.
half a second where Book is communicating with them and he
Oh,
glows
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. I
their
didn't
pattern
notice that.
matches his
I didn't
pattern?
know what to make of that because they didn't say anything about it. Like if I guess it's fitting that the world that that they destroyed is one of the closest, I guess, things evolutionarily to them. Maybe I can't. I'm not. I wasn't sure what to make of that. They definitely. He has the empathy to connect to other beings through his worlds. How they evolved rather, and it's completely different than the way that Vulcans communicate, because they have an empathy with other beings, other life forms. That's why he can drive the spore drive. Um, so
Mhm.
on some level, they connected, and it's ironic that that's the world that they
Yeah.
destroyed, because now they are so
Yeah.
far advanced. It's probably like the connection between, I don't know, an amoeba in us, but it's there, right? It's so it's interesting that's the world that they accidentally destroyed. So I don't know. Maybe he will. Well, we know where he's going to be at the end. He's trying to relocate people who are refugees, based upon, because while Earth was saved, Titan was probably closer to the impact of what was happening. So everyone from Titan was removed. So he's helping with the relocation of those people. So I don't know. I don't know. So like some of the season.
I thought it was a moment that, I mean, it sort of was, I guess, a moment
Mm-hmm,
that we're all connected, or like to show that
mm-hmm,
similarity. It was a very like, because there was no translation of it, right? It
right.
was like there's this silent moment, and they, to say sort of, I took it
Right.
as like, we
Or
understand,
maybe he
or
was communicating
we
his
hear you,
sorrow, which
we
which which
feel
which is
you.
why after that they said they are regretful, right? That why they said they were so regretful, because he was able to communicate his sorrow and the loss to them in a way that Discovery, none of the people from Discovery were able to do before, because they were using mathematical formulas to communicate in the past, and the pheromones that he was able to connect more directly, and also without damage, because Tarina tried it and she was ended up in the sick bay.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, uh, I don't know if they're going to continue having conversations with Tennessee. I guess they sort of have to, because they have to clean up some of the environmental
Hmm.
disaster that they created. So I think
They did mention at the closing monologue that the rifts, which is caused by the DMA, basically is going to clean up everything to find out if there's any toxic voice, as Book mentioned and everything. Every time the DMA destroys a planet, toxic toxic kind of like toxic
mhm.
waste kind of matter kind of thing in space,
Yeah,
but
there's a lot of
this
debris.
can be stored
There's
there.
a lot of debris, and you can imagine
Yeah.
all the stuff that comes from a planet. If it has a collision course with something else, it could cause environmental issues or threaten an entire planet. So yeah, there. So I imagine that he's not going to be the ambassador to them, because he's technically under the custody of Starfleet right now because of everything he did. But I don't know. So like this season, I was trying to think through this season, and one of the episodes I thought was useless was the episode with the the nuns, rather but they specifically have that episode in there so they could have the president say context matters for what he did, because context mattered with the nun. But I reasons matter,
Reasons matter.
reasons matter is what she said, which is fine. But I don't know, I feel like they could have gotten that in there in a different way and actually had that plot have more to do with what the season had to do with, because I feel like that's somewhat of a lost episode, an episode that had nothing to do with the overall plot. And I think when we reviewed the episode, I liked the episode, but I don't know how much it contributed to making the season long plot better, except for that one line. Like, how does it play into the entire season, except for that one line, and the fact that, and I guess we have
I think,
we have Book as a an outlaw, and the fact that Nun was an outlaw was supposed to be like foreshadowing that Book was an outlaw. But like, I don't know. How do you feel?
but she was trying to. I guess the connection I see is, she was trying to save,
Mm-hmm.
a species, and I think that's sort of,
Mm-hmm.
who were trying to save themselves, and that there's value, I guess, in that. It's sort of the connection I see there beyond like the reasons matter, but she also, and she like actually killed a lot of people
Right.
to complete her mission. But I started to see like that. That's where and it was another species that was also unknown to the Federation. I
Yeah.
think, right? So that unknown, that mystery, but recognizing that life, or wanting to
Yeah.
protect that
And
life, I think is sort of maybe the part of
how it fits
the
into the season,
um,
maybe. And yeah, at
messaging.
this point in the
Yeah,
season, when she was going after the nun, they did not know that it wasn't naturally created. They didn't know that it was
right.
created by another species. So I guess that whole episode was supposed to be foreshadowing things. Um, but yeah, I don't know. What do you think of What do you guys think of the season in general? I mean, we haven't gotten to everything in this episode, but what do you guys think of the season in general? Do you think it connects as well as the previous seasons? Do you?
I think this is more well thought out than the last season, because last season it was in last season it got me into the edge of my seat, and then when we reached towards the end of the season and we reached out the cause of the burn, I'm like thinking that's a letdown for me. I'm thinking like, what just happened here? And then, well, this one is more like makes sense and everything, but and it doesn't leave out anything. Didn't leave out anything like loose and
Yeah,
everything,
they
and
tied up
left
all the loose ends. I
avoided.
think for the most part.
Yeah, that's what I appreciate on
Mhm.
this season compared to last season. Last season they left so many plot holes out there. Well, this season they cleared it out and everything, and while they keep focus on the main plot, which is what I appreciate it.
Yeah, I feel like they worked harder on telling the story and telling a complex, like, because we had all of these sort of away missions, so stories within a story that were integral to them getting to this point. um, Whereas I feel like the previous season maybe
Yeah,
didn't connect
I'm
as
thinking of
well.
like
Because yeah, I think that there was that disappointment at the end where it's like, and maybe had the story been told a little bit differently,
yeah.
you wouldn't have felt
I'm
that
thinking
way.
of like the episode that I liked the least last season, which was Sanctuary, when Book was like a prisoner. Um, if there was anything like that, I don't think that as a one off episode that didn't necessarily connect to anything else. I feel like the episode with the nuns this season work better as a one-off episode. Like it's there's no reason for me to rewatch the episode with Book in the Sanctuary episode. Whereas the one-off episode with the nun, if I put aside the fact that it's supposed to plug into the larger story, it's a good one-off like classic Star Trek episode, like trying to connect with the species that is trying to go home, kind of thing. I think it's a better episode than the weakest episode from last season. Um, so I think that in general, this season was executed better than season three, but I still think I liked season two better than this season. Because I think those episodes could probably knit together even better than this season.
Well,
They also last season also had two random episodes in the middle of the season with the Mirror Universe, which again were some of my favorite
Mm.
episodes, but they didn't really help. It didn't really help the plot of the season. So
I mean the mirror related episodes are relating to JoJo, Mirror
right.
JoJo, because they're trying to write her off basically to have her sent off and everything, which possibly leads to Section 31 series soon. Whenever that's
Yeah, I
has a
understand why they
green
had
light,
it there, but
and also
it didn't. It kind of cut up. Sort of the same
yeah,
reason that with the Tilly episode. The Tilly episode didn't really have anything to do with this season much either, but they needed to do something with her to send her off, and at least they didn't spend two
mm,
episodes doing it. Uh, um,
no,
uh, and even though the Tilly episode is probably even more out of place than the Nun episode, I enjoyed it more. So I don't have as much of an issue with it as the Nun episode. As and yeah, I don't know if I enjoyed it. I don't know if I enjoyed it as
I
much
feel
as
like
I did the Mirror Universe episodes from last season, though. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I feel like the Nun episode was also a little bit of a
Yeah,
Tilly
that's true.
episode
Yeah,
too. Like she had a yeah. So I guess part of this season was also like growth
Tilly.
of
Yeah, Tilly. Yeah, they have to deal with a lot of
Tilly.
different
Yeah,
things at the same time, and sometimes they juggle those things
yeah.
well, and sometimes they don't. I don't know. I feel like they should maybe stop with the season long arcs, because it's really difficult to execute those things well, and also juggle all the things that they're trying to juggle. And I think I mentioned this a couple weeks ago. I want more character development, but them trying to do character development and also service the season long plot, something is suffering. Either we're not getting as much character development as we would like if there was more episodic, or we're not. And if it were more episodic, we could actually focus on one character and then another character, or the season long plot isn't serviced well. I do think if they're going to do another season long plot, they have to not have it be a mystery, because for the last 3 seasons it's been a mystery that they have to solve. At first it was the Red
Yeah.
Angel, then it was the Burn, now it's 10C. I think that they solved the mystery in the middle of the season, and then it was just like how we're going to communicate with 10C. So I think that's an improvement from last season, because it wasn't as much of a letdown, because when we figured out what the mystery was in like the second to last episode, because we knew it was 10C, we just needed to know how we're going to communicate with them. But we don't need another
Mhm.
mystery box at the beginning of the next season. I think they if they're going to do a season long arc, they need to figure out something else. Because I think the mysteries are kind of marginally working for them, and it's they're kind of setting themselves up for disappointment, depending on what they decide that the what the mystery is going to be, or what the reveal of the mystery. Because I like season 2 a lot,
Uh-huh.
but a lot of people were annoyed that with what the Red Angel was. Um, I like, and I don't. I have to be honest that the reveal of what the Red Angel was isn't why I like season 2. I like season 2 for lots of other reasons besides that. I mean, the fact that it was her mother was fine, but it wasn't like the greatest thing, or the
Mhm.
greatest reveal to that mystery. But there are a lot of other things that made season 2 really good. The Pike Spock, the travel to the even Owo in that one of the episodes in the beginning of the season where they went to the settlement
Yeah.
that had these myths. Yeah. Had
I
all
know which
these
one you're
myths, and then
talking
Owa
about.
was talking
Yeah.
about she was from a Luddite thing. I thought that's the one little bit of character development they gave her in that season. So that season 2 had a lot of good episodes, but I don't know if the mystery box thing was the greatest thing about that episode, and it wasn't. Sorry, that season, and I'm pretty sure the mystery box thing wasn't necessarily the greatest thing about season 3 either. I like the reveal more than I like the reveal in season 2, of Sokal, but like David was saying, people didn't like it. David didn't like it. I know a lot of people didn't like the Sokal thing, the crying child thing. So like, I think they're just setting themselves up for failure with the mystery boxes at the beginning of the season. I think they should dispense with that, and just come if they're going to do a season long arc. It doesn't have to be a mystery that they have to solve, especially a galaxy wide mystery,
Yeah.
which is kind of difficult to contrive every
Yeah.
single season. So yeah.
Yeah.
So getting back to this episode, so they stop, and then we get sort of an epilogue at the end. We see uh, reunite. People are reunited with Tilly. Tilly gets a giant hug, and Burnham says, "I love you." And then at the very end, we get the thing that that people are talking about. All day long. We get the reunification of Earth with Starfleet. So the the Federation is
Federation.
what I meant to say. So the Federation, not Starfleet. I mean, they're going to join the Starfleet as well, but
Technically, Starfleet is under
under the Federation,
Federation,
right, right.
so
So Burnham says in the voiceover that Andoria has rejoined. Teleprime never left. Navarre. We figured
Navarre
out Navarre
returned.
earlier in the season. We had the weird thing that Navarre is sort of in, sort of out. Burnham is going to be like the bridge or whatever, but to getting Navarre in. Navarre's
Yeah.
not in 100%, but Earth having been saved by the Federation, like they're about to get destroyed. The Federation president comes out and she's like, "There's no negotiation needed." And the Federation president is played by Stacey Abrams. Um,
You mean United
Not
Earth?
sorry, United Earth. Sorry,
United Earth.
Federation
Yeah.
president is Rillak. The United Earth president is played by Stacey Abrams, which excited a lot of people,
Yeah.
but annoyed some other people. Uh, Go ahead.
I knew it was like, so when I saw her, I was like, wait,
Yeah,
really seeing what I'm
I had to say the
seeing?
exact same thing too. I was like, wait a minute, this is not who I think it is. And turns out when I get closer
Right.
and I hear her voice, I'm thinking, holy crap, it is.
yeah,
Yep. Um, I mean, I think my only problem was that was like, oh, there are no negotiations needed. I was like, I mean, yes, they
yeah.
saved me,
I
but
feel like you should want
we
to
are,
talk about some.
but,
I understand. I understand also, but there wouldn't
right?
be a Earth without the Federation, right? If the Federation didn't go on that mission, that there wouldn't be an Earth.
Yeah.
So I can sort of understand. I'm sure that they are things to iron out, but my impression from what she said was that we'll figure it out, right? We'll figure it out,
Right.
because they're eager to be part of the Federation again. Because without the Federation,
Mhm.
United Earth would have been gone. So yeah, the Stacey Abrams of it. How did you guys feel about that? Her showing up.
I liked it. Like, I mean, yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I feel timely. I think what I said, I was like, disco is speaking things I
maybe,
hope into existence.
maybe.
Um, you know, I'm just like, if you can see it, right? Because I feel like we've seen, well, I guess with maybe other shows, but you see a lot of actors talking about it, like Star Trek for them was
Mm-hmm.
this visionary show, and they didn't see themselves represented on TV until the show and its various iterations came along. And I feel like, um, Stacey Abrams for political office,
Yeah,
we see it. So now,
yeah.
it's got to go make it happen.
And David, you liked it as well. I mean,
Like,
I liked it. It's just I just didn't expect anything at all. All I do is focus on the
yeah,
story, and then when just like Condra said, I didn't expect to see anything. And then when the doors are open and show Stacey Abrams, I'm like, wait, what? Is that who I think it is? And then when I heard her voice, and I'm thinking, holy crap, it is Stacey Abrams. But I'm like, I really am happy, and that's when I learned that Stacey Abrams a Trekkie.
yeah. She definitely is a
So,
Trekkie. She's a big Trekkie.
so
So
mhm.
I found a podcast with her talking about her favorite episodes, and she actually mentioned one of her favorite episodes that actually has informed the way that she looks at the world, and actually the way that she governed, and was minority leader in Georgia, was the episode with Data, specifically when he's trying to beat that guy with Strategino, and Picard's peak
peak
performance.
performance.
Yes, peak performance. Um, and she actually knew the name of the episode too off the top of her head. The specifically the scene where Picard says to Data, there is it's possible to make no mistake and still lose. That's not weakness, that's life. So that's something that has instructed the way that she lives the way that she sees the world, but also in that episode, specifically at the very end, Data approached the problem differently. Instead of trying to beat the guy, he tried to play to a stalemate, and he got him to quit in that way. So she also got from that episode, maybe there's a different path to victory than the straightforward path that everyone thinks that is available to them. So yeah, she's definitely she like a lot of people who love Trek. They love Trek not just for the space stuff, which is also great, but also the messaging and the very great writing that's in there. So it's awesome that someone who is like a really true Trekkie person got that opportunity, because I'm sure it was very cool for her. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was like so happy
Yeah,
for her. Jealous and
and
happy, right? Because I'm like, that's the dream for a lot of us, just to
cameo
have
part.
a small like cameo. Like, I don't even need
Yeah,
a speaking
exactly.
part. Just let me
Yeah.
walk by a corridor or something.
So yeah, I appreciate that she's a big Trekkie and that she liked the show. I will say, like, I've been thinking about this all day long, and I am more mixed on it than you guys. And and the reason I've been thinking about it all day long is because I'm a black guy on the internet who has a mixed opinion about what happened earlier today, and there are certain white people who are going to point out, who just want to listen to people who black people who agree with them are going to use my words in a very specific way. So I want to be very clear about the fact that I like Stacey Abrams. I appreciated seeing her. I understand people who have legitimate issues with this, not because I've seen some very vile things over the last day as well, which also gave me pause as well. Some people have said very terrible things about her weight, terrible things about all kinds of things when she showed up. So I don't want to give them any ammunition. The only issue that I had with this is that if it were someone else, I might have been given pause, so I can understand some people having a little bit of an issue. So like I actually looked up all the people who are politicians and like Star Trek. Like, Obama's on that list, but so is Pete Buttigieg. Mm-hmm. And I've had to think to myself, if Pete Buttigieg showed up at the end, would I have the same reaction, or would I be a little bit annoyed? Because Pete Buttigieg, even though he's a Democrat, annoys the hell out of me. So that's the only thing that I would say about this. I will also say that other people have shown up in cameo parts because they like Star Trek. They like Star Trek, but they tend to put
Tyler Perry.
Yeah, but they tend to put them in prosthetics, so they don't give them much to say. Like, apparently Jeff Bezos showed up in like the Star Trek Beyond movie, but they put him under a bunch of prosthetics. So he wasn't as him showing up didn't take you out of the movie. I think that
even
sorry, go ahead.
Even Daniel Craig, who's James Bond, he was in the Force Awakens movie.
Daniel Craig is a fan. He showed up. Kelsey Grammer, if you remember the TNG episode where they were kind of locked in the time warp or whatever, and then he shows up, and then Kelsey Grammer is apparently a big Trek fan, so he wanted to, and it wasn't. They basically did the same thing they did with the Kelsey Grammer episode, because it wasn't in the middle of the episode to pull you out of it altogether. But when Kelsey Grammer shows up, it's Kelsey Grammer. When Stacey Abrams shows up, it's Stacey Abrams, and then the episode ends. I will say, when she showed up, it took me out of the episode a little bit because I was trying to figure out who it was. It was like, and then by the end of her talking, it was like, oh yes, it's Stacey Abrams. But I was like, it took me out because I was like, I know that person, I know that person, I know that person, I know that person. And I wasn't paying attention to the performance. I will say, having watched it over again, she did a really good job actually acting. She didn't have a lot of lines, but she
I mean, she's
right.
She did
a really good job
right?
acting in those scenes. And also, earlier on, I was saying that the costume department, they dressed her very well as well. It was very cool. Very cool. Yeah.
Her hair was gorgeous. Her outfit was gorgeous. Like, the people hating on the internet are, I mean, trolls, just nasty, vicious people who have no love or light in their lives.
Yes.
I'm gonna say it. Like, just ignore them. I think I purposely did not go anywhere in search of commentary on this episode because I knew people were gonna
Yeah,
show
yeah.
their
I
asses
saw some commentary
about it.
online on Facebook, and specifically, someone posted about it, all their excitement, and like all the comments, like she posted her excitement about what happened, and then all the comments were like that I saw were like terrible things. Like one was just like I stopped watching then, and one of them was just like I'm not even gonna repeat what the person said because it doesn't warrant the dignity of being repeated. So I just responded that I agreed, but I was like the person you're gonna get a lot of people vile people showing up saying terrible things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will say that I think I would have been it would have taken me out of the episode a little bit less if she showed up in prosthetics. So and then you would be like, oh, at the end it was Stacey Abrams, which is how they usually do the cameos. Like they put them under some alien makeup. I understand that it would have been a kind of little weird, seeing as how Earth had broken off, but like Earth had broken off after being in space for several centuries. So I could imagine there would have been some alien species still on Earth. So that's the only way that I think they could have handled that a little bit better. Because, like I said, if Pete Buttigieg had showed up, I would have been annoyed. So, yeah.
Really? I would have been jealous and happy for him too. Like,
I don't know.
I
Like,
mean, but
I
he's
like
also, I
Stacey Abrams
think,
a lot. I like Stacey Abrams a
average.
lot more than I like Pete Buttigieg. I if I had if the world was the way that I would like it, well, first of all, Stacey Abrams would be president, but if not, she would be vice president because I like her more than I do Kamala. So I could see. So
I
God,
mean, I see what you're saying, but I think Pete Buttigieg also is not to like he's not as unique, distinctive, remarkable. Like not in a bad way, but it's like he would have been
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
pedestrian
yeah.
looking, you know. Whereas I think she
She
does
does have a regal
have,
comportment to
um,
her when she came out of the thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um. Yes, I can imagine. Yes, I can
you
see what you're
know,
saying there. Yeah, he probably couldn't have pulled off. Which is ironic for him because he wants to be president. He probably couldn't have pulled off president of the earth. um.
but I still would have been happy for him. Is what
Yeah,
I'm.
I guess so. I mean, I wouldn't have been mad about it. I just would have been slightly annoyed about it because it would have pulled me out of the episode even more than her showing up. Because, like I said, when she first showed up, I was like, I was staring at the screen because, like, you don't. So, like, you know when you recognize a person, but you don't recognize a person within a particular context. It was like my brain was breaking a little bit. So like it took me a little while.
It's
I've
just a
seen her so much,
moment
right?
you
I've seen her
just
so much, so I knew who she was, but I wasn't expecting her to show up in Star Trek. So it took me a beat.
Yeah,
we're just so focused on the whole story that at the last minute, literally, it just Stacey Abrams
Yeah,
appeared and you don't even
yeah,
recognize who she is. You're basically going, oh, the president of the United Earth coming. Wait a minute, is that who I think it is? Yeah, that's when it happened.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it was at the very end of the episode, so it was the least. They put it in the place that it would be the least distracting. So the episode ends with the president talking to Burnham about
Mike,
yeah, talking to Burnham about the fact that I can imagine it being strange coming from a time where Earth was part of the Federation, and there's so much more to do, and then they kind of pan off onto Earth. So it was a good way to end the episode. If they were going to do that kind of stunt casting or that stunt cameo, it didn't take you out of the if it took you out of the episode, it didn't take you out of the episode at like in the middle of the episode. So yeah. So what do you guys think for season two? Sorry, season five. What do you think they're gonna come up with?
or
4, man.
Hmm.
just like jumping ahead.
Yeah, season five.
Like you
Season
said,
five.
season
Season
five.
five is after the season. So like so we talked about this on and off throughout the season. I don't think Saru can be on the bridge again anymore. Oh, one thing I did miss was he connected with Tarina right at the end. He connected with Tarina at the end.
Yeah.
So they're going to seem to have. It seems like they're going to have a relationship. They slow burned into that, and they actually seem like they're committed to being in a relationship with one another, which is yeah,
They're gardening
yeah.
together. It's done. Yeah.
Hence
So
the line that he said, as Trina said to him, there it will be very difficult, but as long as with the right
yeah,
person, in which signal is
Yes.
saying, dude, she wants
yes.
you.
It's
So
their court is verse.
But Saru has game
Go ahead,
because
go
when
ahead, go
she
ahead.
was, oh, go ahead. I said when she was in sick bay, he said something to the effect of, we think of these things. You like she said, or because she said something about it being difficult to be close to people, and he was like, but I think of it as my day
Mm-hmm.
is dimmer for
Yeah,
not having these experiences. Right? It could be more difficult, but you also
right. Yeah,
brighten my life.
yeah.
Like, so yeah, I mean, it's sort of
Yeah, they're a
really
very
just
sweet
delightful
couple.
to see
I
them
want to see more
together.
of them next season. We'll see. I mean, like I don't know what they're going to do. Like they obviously pulled. I don't know if Wiseman is gone from the show. She definitely they definitely showed her in this last episode doing well as a teacher in Starfleet Academy. So I don't think it makes sense for them to pull her away from that in season two. Um, but I don't. But they haven't announced if they're going to do a Starfleet Academy show. But it seems obvious that that's what they should do. Like do a Starfleet Academy show with her, and maybe Saru. So Saru doesn't have to be on the ship because having two captains on the ship is a little weird. I understand there was an emergency this season, but they can't. It's going to be really difficult to explain why he's still on the ship next season when there isn't an emergency. So having them both.
there was
Sorry, go ahead.
also like there was also Bryce, Lieutenant Commander Bryce, that was
So
missing throughout almost the entire
So I think
season.
that's just because that actor specifically is in another show. He had some
Hmm.
scheduling conflicts, as opposed to what they're doing with Saru and Tilly. I feel like their stories are going in a different place, and since they're going in a different place, they need a different show to showcase their story. Because the ship is mobile, right? So if their story is going to a different place, they need to be closer to Starfleet Academy, where the cadets are, and him being closer to Starfleet Academy, Saru specifically, will probably facilitate his ability to actually have a relationship with Tarina because she can't be, you know, adventuring around the universe either. She sort of has to be on Navarre. So as an emissary or a diplomat from Starfleet, he can maybe visit her more often than he could if he was on a ship that was exploring the universe. So I guess we'll see. I think that they definitely have some opportunities to make to do something interesting with those two characters, and also a debt fair at Starfleet Academy as well. I can imagine them being the three leads of the show, of a Starfleet Academy show, with I guess Tilly being the main lead since she's one of the main instructors or whatever. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do for season two of. Sorry, I keep saying season two, season five of Discovery, though. Like I don't know where they're going to go with them, but I hope that they don't do another mystery box thing, and hopefully
Uh,
there isn't another war. But I guess they do need to deal with the Emerald Chain, at a certain point also. So yeah.
I think even in a sense they need to deal with 10C because, well, not deal with 10C, but because I was wondering like why, um, because obviously 10C has been mining right in the galaxy because they made a comment about broadening their search because I guess they try to put the DMA in uninhabited
But
regions,
they're
but
under.
they don't seem to have a sense of like the distance that it
Yeah, but
impacts,
their
right?
definition
Um,
of uninhabited or unintelligent was far narrower
yeah,
than yes.
yeah, yeah. So clearly, but also maybe just like if it's a matter of finding them like a new
Well,
system that they can
well,
inhabit safely,
it seems like
where they, yeah,
what the speech that Book and also I think I forget which one convinced them to take down the hyperfield because their concern was that if they don't keep mining,
Book.
yeah, if they don't keep mining, they won't have the resources to keep the hyperfield up, and they want to protect their people because of the
right.
catastrophe that happened to them on their old planet. So they want to protect their people. Um,
Hmm.
so I think his argument was that we're all connected. We have to kind of live in this universe together. And putting up walls isn't the best way to be. Um, which so at the end of the episode, before they were warped off through the wormhole, you saw the hyperfield go down. So they're not going to use it anymore, the DMA anymore to mine. So um,
But it made me wonder if they thought that there was still some existing threat. I don't know. Because if there is like a realistic, they have a reason to want to protect themselves,
I
and
don't know.
that
I got the
should.
sense that it wasn't a
Mm.
threat that destroyed their planet. I thought it was a natural disaster. It got. I didn't get the sense that it was a threat that destroyed them. Did you get a sense?
No, no, no. No, when I say threat, like, and it could be anything, but that it could still, at least
Yeah.
they thought it could happen again. And were they protecting themselves because there's a realistic chance that it could happen
Or they
again? Like,
or
is it
or
maybe
more,
you just need to not, right? You need to just not be in this region of space,
I think it was
or
just
are
trauma.
you,
I think it was
you know,
trauma. I think it
the
was trauma.
trauma
They
of
think
that?
that they lost
Yeah,
a lot of people, and they don't want it to happen again. I think it was just trauma. Like the field seemed to be so impervious to anything going through it. So it seems like even if they were to use their DMA on the barrier of the hyperfield, it wouldn't be able to crash through it. So like they were just being very very protective. They didn't want it to happen again. So like anything to touch them. So yeah.
yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap up about the season or the episode? No. No. All right.
Nope.
Okay. Well, that is what we think, but we want to hear what you guys think. So please comment down below to join the conversation, and we will see you next time. All right, guys. Thanks. Bye.